This is going to be a video on the Chrysler Sebring timing belt and water pump on a 2.5 liter Mitsubishi engine. Now, actually, this is depends on your skills. It's a fairly involved job. It's not that super easy, and on a Sebring convertible, usually it's a little more difficult to work on than the average car. A lot of people complain about that, but I'm just going to do like a voiceover on this. This is the upper. I take off the upper timing chain cover on the right side as you're looking at the side of the motor. That's the alternator, and you can see this is the timing belt here, and it's just a few bolts to take that off. That's the cover itself. Okay, it's very simple to come off. And you can see that's the upper. If you're going to check the belt to see if it's loose or something's wrong with it, that's the fastest way to check it. Take off that little upper cover, but you really can't check all three timing marks at the same time. Now, this you're looking at is this big pulley, and I'm going to go over this a little later. It's actually quite difficult to take off the center bolt off of this pulley. And if you don't have an impact wrench with impact sockets, you're going to have a hell of a time taking that off. Now, I had took off this plastic, which sits right here. There's like a few, 1, 2, 3, and one on the bottom. I'm just going to stop this a second. There's, if I can back this up. There's one here, and one there, one here, okay, and one on the bottom. If you have a problem taking off the plastic, you shouldn't be doing this job. That's for certain. This is the power steering pump, belt, and the next clip is not going to be as bad as this. And I want to point out this is the adjuster up here, right here. Now you loosen this bolt up to get off the serpentine belt. But to get off the serpentine belt, you'll have to take off the power steering belt first. Okay, but you can actually adjust the serpentine belt right here. And this is your AC compressor, okay, right here. Alright. So I believe that's a 15mm bolt. Okay. Now to go on to the next video. Now I'm just going to play this actually because it'll be simpler. Alright, you're looking at the upper motor mount, which is on the passenger side on a 2.5 Sebring. Now I have the engine supported under the oil pan with a jack. So it's actually jacked up with a piece of wood between the jack and the oil pan, so you don't put a dent in the oil pan. And these bolts are loose, okay? So this is the actual motor mount, okay? And they're 14mm bolts. Now, I took the oil pump, I mean not the oil pump, the power steering pump filler container, and it's bolted in. I don't know if you can see this very well. Hopefully I'll give enough light in here. Well, it's bolted in there with two 10mm bolts. You can barely see that or not. Onto this bracket right here. Okay, and you really, they're not that hard to get out actually, but I'm making this look more difficult than it is. But here on the bottom, if you can see them there, they go right through the plastic. Two 10mm bolts. I suggest using short extension on that, and you'll be able to reach that no problem. Now, as far as one of the things you're going to have a real problem with, if you don't have an impact wrench and an impact socket is this. And taking off this center pulley. That's a 22 millimeter bolt. Okay. You can see that. That's a 22 millimeter bolt and washer. Okay. And it goes in the center of this pulley here. Okay. And how to use an impact wrench with impact sockets. Doesn't even come off with regular sockets. I tried. Or if you're going to take this off another way, you would need a chain wrench wrapped around the pulley after you take off the two belts, the power steering belt and the serpentine belt, and then wrap this up with cloth so you don't mar it up the chain wrench. But I suggest you use an impact wrench because it doesn't come off easy at all. I think it's under about 150 foot-pounds. It's 22 millimeter or 13/16. They're the same size. But if anybody runs into a problem doing this job, this is going to be one of the problems. The other problem is going to be the power steering bracket. I'll go over that a little later. But you can see I have the oil pan jacked up with a jack underneath here. Okay. And the middle cover is now off of the middle timing chain cover is off. Okay, this is where the pulley is bolted on, obviously, right there, net hole. And this is the timing chain cover, the center one. And there's 4 10 millimeter bolts on that. Okay, so I'm probably going to make this video in a few steps because it's a labor-intensive operation, actually. And the Sebring car is not easy to work on, actually. And these two bolts here on the bottom, these are also to the, you can see how long they are. They're to the motor mount that I was showing on the top. Okay. There's one. I don't know if this one's that loose. Two. So now I can take out the motor mount. Now this piece here, if I can show that, this piece here is the bracket that the motor mount bolts to. You have to take this off, and you can see here's the serpentine timing belt. Now before I take off the belt, I'm going to have to line everything up. In other words, before you take off the belt, you'll have to turn the engine and line up all three marks, all three timing marks. And also, you would be good to mark them with white paint before you actually pull off this belt. And definitely have your battery disconnected before you do anything. You don't want to hit the starter at all. But there's one, actually the worst step is to take out the power steering pump bracket. And now you can actually see the adjuster right here to loosen this bulb. That's the adjustment for the belt on the power steering pump belt. Okay, now you have to loosen one on the other side and one up in here. It's kind of dark, you can't actually see it that well. To do that, there's a couple bolts in the back that are difficult to get at, and what I do is I take off the upper intake manifold, and I'll go over that again. Now, what I was talking about on the power steering pump bracket, not the pump itself, the bracket, there are two 15 millimeter bolts that are in the back of the engine on the top that are difficult to get to, and it's easier to get to them from the top of the engine. But to get to those bolts, you have to take off the upper intake manifold. I'll go over that. This is going to be part one. But if I can point to this, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a, let's see, there's a bolt right here, here. That bolt, that's one, and there's one behind in the back on that side. You have to loosen up to move the pump out of the way, and there's one on the top. I'll probably show this a little bit better in some other. There's another one up there on the top. So there's 3 bolts you got to take out to get the pump out of the way, and then you have to swing the power steering pump bracket out of the way. And I'll have to go over this in another video because this is going to be split in a few parts, because I think I'm not going to throw this together in one video. It would be too long.